Healing from within, how to escape the feeling of emptiness. Lately, you may have felt like something is missing, an overwhelming sense of emptiness that you just can't shake off, despite everything on the outside seeming perfectly fine. You carry this heavy, nagging feeling inside. You've tried everything, diving into work, binge-watching shows, or escaping on vacations. But nothing seems to fill that void. You ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Why, with a beautiful home, a loving family, a high-paying job, and supportive friends, do I still feel like something isn't right? One evening, you sit in silence, gazing out the window, and then it hits you. It's not that you don't have enough. It's that you've been chasing something that will never truly fill you. The emptiness you feel doesn't come from the world around you. It comes from within. It's your desires, fears, and thoughts, quietly eating away at you, convincing you that happiness is always just beyond your grasp, tied to something external. But what if the secret to peace isn't out there, but right here, in how you choose to respond to life's challenges? What if the path to true freedom isn't about changing your surroundings, but transforming how you perceive and react to the world around you? This is the journey Buddha's teachings offer, a way through the suffering many of us face. It's about realizing that the root of suffering doesn't lie in external circumstances or what others do to us, but in our attachment to desires, our illusions of permanence, and our resistance to the inevitable changes of life. Once we truly accept this truth, we take the first step toward the peace we've been searching for all along. The root of suffering in Buddhism. At the heart of Buddhism is a profound realization. Suffering does not arise from external events or circumstances, but from how we respond to them internally. While we often look outward to explain our struggles, the truth is that suffering originates in our minds. It comes from our attachment to desires, false beliefs, and the expectation that life should always unfold according to our plans. When we cling to the illusion that life can be predictable, controllable, or permanent, we set ourselves up for pain and disappointment. This understanding is crucial for healing. Buddha's teachings reveal that suffering is not a random event in life, nor is it caused by others or external circumstances. Instead, it arises from the three poisons: craving, anger, and ignorance that trap us in a cycle of dissatisfaction and suffering. Once we recognize these poisons, we can begin to free ourselves from them and find true peace. The three poisons: craving, anger, and ignorance. Let's take a deeper look at these three poisons and explore how they impact our lives. 1. Craving. Craving is one of the most powerful forces in our lives. It drives us to want more. More money, more success, more love, more recognition. We think that achieving these things will make us feel complete, happy, and at peace. But Buddha taught us that no matter how much we acquire, the hunger never ends. Craving is insatiable. It never truly satisfies us. Because once we achieve one thing, our minds immediately shift to the next desire. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much we pour in, it leaks out. Think about the excitement you feel when you get a new car or a new gadget. At first, it brings a rush of joy and satisfaction, but over time, the novelty fades, and you begin craving something new again. The same happens with relationships, status, and material wealth. We believe these things will bring us lasting happiness, but they only provide temporary satisfaction, leaving us yearning for more. Buddha's wisdom teaches us that true fulfillment comes from within. not from the endless pursuit of things outside. True happiness is found in inner peace, mindfulness, and a deeper understanding of the impermanence of life. To anger. Anger is another poison that destroys our inner peace. It arises when life doesn't meet our expectations, when we feel wronged, or when things don't go our way, when we experience frustration. Anger builds inside us, often leading to resentment or hatred toward others or even ourselves. But the danger of anger is that it burns us from the inside. It clouds our judgment, distorts our perception of the world, and destroys the peace within us. Buddha gave a powerful analogy about anger. It's like holding a burning coal. When we're angry, we're holding onto that coal, thinking that it will harm the person who wronged us. But in reality, it's burning us. Anger corrodes our hearts, and no matter how justified we feel, in the end, it only hurts us. Buddha teaches us that anger poisons our minds, keeping us stuck in negativity and preventing us from experiencing true peace. Letting go of anger does not mean excusing bad behavior. It means choosing to free ourselves from the toxic grip of rage. When we release it, we reclaim our peace. 3. Ignorance. Ignorance in Buddhist terms is not just a lack of knowledge, it's being blind to the true nature of life. We often fail to recognize that everything in life is impermanent. Our possessions, relationships, and even our own lives. We cling to the idea that things will remain the same, that we can control our future and maintain stability. This attachment to permanence is an illusion that leads to suffering. For example, someone who is very attached to their job title, social status, or the approval of others might believe these things define who they are. But when life changes, when they lose their job, face rejection, or go through a failure, they feel lost and devastated. This is the suffering that arises from ignorance. We mistakenly believe that we are static, unchanging beings. But in reality, we are constantly evolving. And so is everything around us. The more we try to hold on to something fleeting, the more we invite suffering into our lives. Buddha's teachings help us realize that life is always changing. And by accepting this truth, we can begin to free ourselves from the pain of attachment. Breaking the cycle of suffering. These 3 poisons, craving, anger, and ignorance, create a cycle of suffering that is hard to break, even those who seem to have it all. Wealth, fame, love are not immune to these poisons. They may experience success externally, but internally they are still trapped by desires, anger, and feelings of emptiness. Buddha's path teaches us that no amount of external success can bring lasting happiness. True contentment, as Buddha taught, is cultivated within, through awareness, mindfulness, and acceptance of life's impermanence. Once we understand the root causes of suffering, we can begin to break free from them. The first step is recognizing these poisons when they arise in our minds. This is where mindfulness comes in. By practicing mindfulness, we become more aware of our thoughts, emotions, and reactions, instead of being swept away by cravings, anger, or ignorance. We can observe them and let them pass without clinging to them. When we practice mindfulness and apply it to our daily lives, we start to experience a shift. We stop chasing after things we think will make us happy, and we begin to find contentment in the present moment. We start letting go of anger and resentment, realizing that these emotions only harm us. And we start seeing the world as it truly is, a continuous flow of ever-changing experiences. This shift in perspective is the key to transforming our suffering into wisdom and peace. Buddha's teachings provide a path out of the cycle of suffering. They teach us that the root of suffering is not in what happens to us, but in how we respond to it. When we let go of craving, anger, and ignorance, we free ourselves from the cycle of suffering and begin to live a life of peace and fulfillment. Healing does not come from avoiding pain, but from learning how to walk through it with awareness, compassion, and understanding. It's about accepting the impermanent nature of life and finding peace within ourselves, regardless of what happens outside. The true happiness we seek is already within us, waiting to be discovered when we choose to look inward. One of the key practices in Buddhism for overcoming suffering is mindfulness. But mindfulness is not just about being aware. It's about being fully present, acknowledging what we're doing, thinking, and feeling without judgment. It's about living in the moment, rather than being lost in regrets about the past or worries about the future. A woman in her 30s who seemed to have everything, a stability, a loving partner, and a beautiful home, found herself overwhelmed with a sense of unease. Despite her outward success, she struggled with sleepless nights, constant anxiety, and a deep inner emptiness. No matter what she did, therapy, travel, distractions, she couldn't shake her internal discomfort. Her breakthrough came when she met a Buddhist monk who said, "You are not wrong for feeling pain, but you can choose how to face it." This simple statement was a turning point. It made her realize that true healing comes not from running away from her emotions, but from facing them with awareness and acceptance. Through mindfulness, we can break free from the cycle of reactivity, allowing ourselves to acknowledge our emotions without being overwhelmed by them. One of the most powerful tools for mindfulness is our breath. It's always with us. It's a silent, constant companion. In times of stress or pain, we can return to our breath, using it as an anchor to bring us back to the present moment. When we become mindful of our breathing, we step outside the chaos of our thoughts and emotions, giving ourselves the space to simply be. While mindfulness is critical, it is incomplete without compassion, especially self-compassion. We often hold ourselves to impossible standards, blaming ourselves for things beyond our control. We criticize ourselves for perceived failures, perpetuating our suffering. True healing begins when we learn to show ourselves the same compassion we would offer a loved one in distress. Buddha teaches that compassion is not just something we extend to others. It must first be directed inward. Self-compassion is essential for healing. When we embrace our pain and imperfections with kindness, we begin to heal. Self-compassion means allowing ourselves to feel pain without judgment, offering ourselves the same understanding and care that we would extend to a friend. It is through this kindness that we begin to let go of the inner critic that keeps us trapped in the cycle of suffering. The transformative power of forgiveness. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful transformative practices in Buddhism. Many of us hold onto anger and resentment, thinking that by doing so, we protect ourselves. But Buddha teaches that forgiveness isn't about excusing the actions of others. It's about freeing ourselves from the grip of anger and resentment that keeps us tethered to the past. There's a powerful Buddhist story that illustrates this point. A man was deeply hurt by someone and asked a monk how to forgive. The monk handed him a hot coal and told him to hold it. The man screamed in pain. "I can't hold this, it's burning me." The monk replied, That is exactly what you're doing when you hold on to anger. You're hurting yourself. Forgiveness is about letting go of the coal that burns us. Forgiveness is not about condoning the wrongs done to us, but about choosing peace over pain. As Buddha said, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. When we forgive, we release ourselves from the chains of suffering. Healing doesn't happen by erasing pain or avoiding suffering. It comes from learning how to walk through life's challenges with mindfulness and compassion. Healing happens when we stop running from our wounds and start facing them with courage. Buddha often likened this process to the lotus flower, which grows from the muddy water but remains pure. In the same way, we cannot avoid the mud of suffering, but we can choose to grow through it. Our pain does not define us, but how we respond to it does. Suffering is an inevitable part of life, but it is also an opportunity for transformation. By accepting and facing our pain with mindfulness, compassion, and forgiveness, we can turn it into something beautiful, a source of wisdom and growth. Buddhism teaches us that we are not victims of life's circumstances. While we can't control external events, we can control how we respond to them. Through mindfulness, compassion, and forgiveness, we can heal ourselves and find peace. The path to healing is not about a destination, but a continuous journey, one that begins with understanding the nature of suffering and taking responsibility for our healing. It is a journey that each of us can walk, one mindful step at a time. Key lessons to remember: 1. Suffering is not caused by others. It comes from our attachment to desires and the false belief in the permanence of things. 2. Mindfulness is essential for healing. Awareness of our thoughts and emotions helps us respond with wisdom and compassion. 3. Self-compassion is the foundation of healing. We must first love and accept ourselves before we can truly heal. 4. Forgiveness liberates us. Holding on to anger only causes us more pain. Letting go is the key to freedom. 5. Suffering is part of life. How we choose to react to suffering defines our peace. By integrating these teachings into your life, you can begin your journey from suffering to peace, from ignorance to wisdom. Buddhism shows us that true healing comes not from avoiding pain, but from transforming it through awareness, compassion, and forgiveness. If this video resonated with you, share it with someone who may benefit from it. Don't forget to subscribe to Destiny Lies in Your Hands for more insights into Buddhist teachings and spiritual healing. And always remember, take a deep breath, stay present, and choose peace. Healing begins the moment you decide to look within. The path to peace is always available, one mindful breath at a time.